these are a lot of words, but it's just giving you the definitions. You don't have to memorize all these. These are easily understandable in very short words. Okay? And we actually talked about these the Friday before spring break. We're talking about what?
Angles and arcs.
Angles and arcs. Mostly arcs, but angles have a little bit to do with it. So, we actually are going to talk about the 3 kind of arcs that you can find today. Let's make sure we're putting our heads up, please. Okay? So, you have what we talked about is a minor arc. You have a major arc. And then the third kind of arc doesn't have the name arc in it, but it's called a semicircle. Okay? So, we have a minor arc, a major arc, and a semicircle. Now, a minor arc is just less than 180. It's less than half of a semicircle. If it's greater than half, then it has to be major. So remember we talked about how we name an arc? An arc is always going to have this little rainbow over it. You see this little rainbow? I don't always make mine pointy like that. I think it's just how the computer does it. I just do a little rainbow like that. Okay? So a minor arc usually only has 2 points in it. For example, it says right here, GF is a minor arc. So GF is an arc, and because it's less than 180, it is minor. So what's another example of a minor arc that you see right here? C what? CF. That's one example. What's another? HG. Good. And these are interchangeable, so you could say GH. Here's the difference between how you read a minor and a major. How do I know that I'm talking about GF right here, about this arc? How do I know the difference between this GF and this GF? If it's going to be a major, there has to be 3 points. That's how you tell the difference. So, for example, a major arc, so if I'm talking about this one that I did in pink, I have to use a 3rd point. The 3rd point doesn't matter as long as it's in between the 2 endpoints. Does that make sense? So if I'm talking about from here all the way to F, it has to start with G and it has to start with F, but the 3rd point in the middle does not matter. So it could be what or what? H or C. So major arc could be G, H, C, or F. F. I was talking about this one, right? GHF, or it could be GCF. Do you see the difference? If it's going to be major, it has to tell you how to go along the circle. Do you see a semicircle in this one?
No.
No, there's not a semicircle. There has to be a diameter in order to get a semicircle.
There's symbol for this one?
Huh?
There's symbol for this one?
You just name it the same way. You could use 2 or 3 letters, though. Okay? Okay, now, this is slightly confusing, so I'm going to try to explain it the best I can. In this circle right here, you have a central angle. So right here, you have 3 angles. You have this angle, you have this angle, and then you have this angle. Those are all called central angles. It's called a central angle if it goes all the way to the vertex and back out. Okay, so it's central if it goes from the side to the middle to the side again. That's a central angle. Now, if it tells you to find the measure, this M right here, that just stands for measure. It means it wants you to tell us what is the measure of the arc. What's the measure of the arc? So if you want to find the measure of arc AB, all I'm given is angles, right? That's all I'm given. So if that's the scenario and all you're given is angle measures, then this measure of arc AB is just going to be the same thing. So if this angle is 42 degrees, then this arc is just 42. It's unitless. There are no units. If there are units, it's a whole different ballgame. Okay? So it tells me that AC is a diameter. If that's a diameter, then it means we have a semicircle, right? How many degrees has to be a semicircle?
180.
So can I find this other angle right here? Absolutely. 180 minus 42. So this angle right here would be 38? 30?
8.
Okay, yes. I heard the 8. I didn't hear the middle number. Okay, so it says if the angle ARB is 42, then the measure of arc AB is 42. No units. It's unitless. Thus, is this a major or minor arc? This one right here. Major. It's a major because it goes from A to C to B. So major arc ACB goes all the way around. So how many degrees is all of this?
138 plus 180.
Can I start with 360 and subtract 42?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Mm.
So this whole thing, this whole piece right here, is going to be 360 minus 42, which gives me what? 318? It's important to know, if you see 3 letters like this in an arc, don't just assume it's major, because it can also be semi. So you're going to have to label these as minor, major, and semi. If you see 3, don't just start going around and being like, oh, 2, minor, 3, major. Because if it's a semi, you'll miss it. Okay? So right here, they want you to find the missing angle. What do you start with? 360. Start with 360. Subtract everything you know. What's left? Huh? 80? Mm-hmm. So your angle of measure X, or your angle of X is 180 degrees. Okay, find X over here. What's that box stand for? 90. So I would start with 360, subtract 120, subtract 90. I'll give you what's left. Which is what? I don't know why. Oh, I don't know why I put 180. Sorry. It's just 80. Okay, so what's X on number 2? 150. Okay, in numbers 3 through 8, what you have to do is you have to determine if each of these are major, minor, or semicircle. If I were you, the very first thing I would do is I would go to this circle and I'd find all the missing angles. Because you're going to need them anyways, you might as well just go ahead and get it over with. So it's important that it told you that BD and AC are diameters. That means that that's half the circle, right? And if that's half the circle, can't I start with 180, subtract 44, and I'll know what's left? So what's left? 136. You could use vertical angles now. Yeah, those are vertical. So if this is 44 degrees, what's this? And so the other one has to be? Now, if you don't like that really, if you didn't see the vertical angles, once you did that, you could just cut this off right here and then do 180 minus 36. It'll give you 44, and you can find the other one. But yes, vertical angles work. Okay, so go to number 3. It says find the measure of arc BA. Is that a minor, major, or semicircle? It's a minor. And what's the measure of the arc? 44. Keep going. Do that through 8. Taylor, have you finished 4? What did you say? What kind of arc is it? It's a minor, and then what is its measure? Okay, Abby, have you finished 5? What'd you get? Minor, 44. Good. Okay, number 6, A, C, B. Clara, what'd you say? Start with A, go all the way around to C, and keep going to B. So what's that? Major. Start with A, go all the way to C, keep going to B. That's a major. Now, it might be easiest to just start with 360 and subtract 44 to find your angle or your arc measure. What'd y'all get? 316. Okay, Kalia, BCD. Good. Semi, do I even have to look at the angles? No, what's the measure? 180. Okay, now last one. 8, Cesar. What is arc AD? Minor. How many degrees? 136. Yes, and I shouldn't have said degrees. I should have just said the measure of the arc. Okay, now when you flip the page, we have a whole different scenario. Whole different scenario going on here. The difference is they give you what this time? The length of the radius, and they tell you the units, right? That's the difference between the front page and the back page. The back page, you have units. Therefore, if this is 135, this arc AB is not going to be 135 inches. It's not logically equivalent, right? So now that they give you a unit, you can no longer just say, oh, well, AB is 135 inches. No. Wrong, right? If you got a ruler, that 8 inches is not going to be the same. If that 8 inches, if that's 8, that's not going to be 135. It's going to be way too big. So there's a formula when you have a unit. It's called the arc length formula. So it's right here. This is your formula. You have to memorize it. This is one of the 2 formulas so far that we've had to memorize. This is called arc length. You use this when you're given units. You use this when you're given units. What does the R stand for? Radius. And this X is just the measure of your angle. So your X is your angle measure. X is just your angle measure. Okay, so if I want to find L, if I want to find the length of this arc, but I'm given units, then I have to use that formula. Okay, so this is how it works. I want to find the arc of AB, the measure of arc AB. So from here to here. But I'm given units. So I have to use the formula. So X divided by 360, 2 pi R. Well, X in this case is going to be your angle measure, which is 135, 2 pi, and then your radius is what? 8. So plug in right here. Plug in 135 and plug in 8. Then try to plug it in your calculator and see if you get the right thing. Hello. Okay, thank you.
And so did you get air?
Huh?
And so did you get air?
No. Okay, so X is going to be 135, and your radius is 8. So I want you to plug that in your calculator, see if you're plugging it in correctly. I would do this first. I would do 135 divided by 360 equals times 2. You can do all that in one. Times 2 pi 8 equals. Did I get the right thing?
Yeah.
Okay, that's it. The only difference is sometimes they might give you the diameter. There's 2 things you can do. You can either, I like to just divide it in half because I don't want to memorize 2 formulas. You either just divide it in half, or if you're given the diameter and you want to plug the diameter in, you just don't use what? 2. Okay, so for number 1, find the measure of arc DE. So you're finding DE, It's important that they gave us DE for two reasons. First of all, because that's what we're finding, right? It's what we're finding. But we also need this arc to know what angle to use. So what measure of the angle do we need to use? 120. So length of the arc is going to be 120 divided by 360 times 2 pi and your radius, which is 2. Don't forget your unit. Okay, keep going. What's the difference in number 2? What'd they give you? They gave you it's a major, and they gave you the diameter. So to find the measure of DEA, we need to include 120 degrees and 90. So if you're finding this whole arc right here, you're going to have to add both of those angle measures together. So your length is going to be 210? 210 divided by 360. I like to just go ahead and divide it, so I'm using the same thing, the same formula. So I'm going to divide the diameter in half to get the radius. Now, if you don't want to do that, you can just say 210 divided by 360, not 2, see, that's why I can't do it, pi times 7. Go on to 3 and 4. Either way, your answer should be 12.83. Okay, for BC, that's a minor arc. And so it's only 45 degrees. And then BE, is that the diameter or the radius?
The diameter.
That's the diameter. So if I'm going to do it my way, I need to divide that in half. Okay, I want you to continue going through 8. I'm going to put the answers up here so you can check your answers.
Go through 4.
Go all the way through 8.